everyone, it's Michelle. I am back to talk more about my current surrogacy journey. So I don't know if they'll show a lot of this chronologically or not, but I had recently been matched with a couple back in, I want to say it was October of last year, October or November of last year. I was matched with a wonderful couple and I flew out to Los Angeles, California from my home in Missouri for my medical clearance. Everything on site of the medical clearance had gone well except for the thickness of my uterine lining. So for the past couple months, we've tried a couple different medications and then we just tried no medication and my uterine lining was finally thick enough for me to pass medical clearance. So everything with my blood work came back positive the first time, my medical history was approved the first time, so we were just waiting on that uterine lining thickness. So now that I am out of medical clearance, we were about to step into our legal clearance process, which is what comes next. And unfortunately, I got the bad news that my surrogacy couple was going to have to put a pause on their journey. Something happened in their family and they had a medical emergency, so they no longer feel that it is the right time for them to continue with their journey, and so they are putting their side on hold. That doesn't mean that they put me on hold, unfortunately, so I just had to say goodbye to them. I didn't say anything specifically to them. We hadn't grown super close yet. We'd only had the one match meeting, so I've just kind of said goodbye to their case manager and was dropped. GivingTree immediately was emailing me, contacting me. Kelly at GivingTree has been amazing from the beginning. She helps me with a lot of my matchmaking processes. Kelly is also the one who hosts our weekly surrogacy support group meetings, monthly surrogacy support group meetings. Kelly puts them together. Sometimes she'll bring in special guests. Sometimes it's just her and a PowerPoint that she's put together. Sometimes we'll have surrogacy speakers of our own surrogates and or intended parents. So that's always super amazing, and she continues to be helpful in the matchmaking process. She reached out to me within days, maybe even the day of me finding out that my intended parents were no longer going to move forward with their journey, just to see how I was feeling and make sure that I wasn't too upset. I mean, obviously it's kind of upsetting that we had waited so long, several months of this process, making sure my uterine lining was thick enough to pass medical clearance, and then finally when we got the A-OK, we cut the journey short. So it was a little disappointing. That's totally fine. There's gonna be ups and downs in surrogacy, and it's just kind of a roll with the punches situation. So we said goodbye to that couple, and Kelly immediately was updating my profile. So I've spoken before how we have a profile with our name, medical history, our lifestyle choices, whether or not we're married. Sometimes it depends on how many kids we have. I know they talk about Joey on my profile, as well as the surrogate baby that I've already birthed before since I'm an experienced surrogate. So she updated my profile with a bunch of pictures that I was able to supply. She asked questions about my life and see if anything had changed. A few things had. My weight had fluctuated downward since when we first built the profile. I had just had a baby about 6 months prior, so my weight had dropped about 15 pounds since then, so we updated my weight. My husband graduated college, so we were able to update his profile and make him a full-time employee instead of a student, so that was super fun. And then just updated it with pictures. My family, we grow and we change, and sometimes we get bangs, and so we updated it with a bunch of photos of me with my bangs, a bunch of photos of my son. Instead of looking 6 in the photos, now he looked closer to 8 like he is. He's close to shoulder height now, so he's much larger in a lot of my pictures. So we updated my profile, and immediately within 24 to 48 hours of posting it, I had gotten a confirmation that a couple was interested. I have been through the matchmaking process a total of 3 times now, I believe. So the first time I matched with my couple that I was able to provide a baby for. The second time I matched with a couple and unfortunately the clinic didn't like me, so it didn't stick. And then the third time was this most recent time where the couple ended up putting a pause on their surrogacy journey. So this is my 4th time going through the matchmaking process, and it's all felt similar since I've gotten used to the process. Every time they've given me one profile of either a single intended parent or a couple, typically is what I see. And their profile kind of gives their first names, why they're looking into surrogacy, and what they're looking for in a surrogate. So it has some of their personality to it, but it also leaves room for privacy as well. So I get to read over their profile and decide if there's somebody that I want to work with. And if I say yes, then we have our match meeting, normally within the week of. So we have our match meeting. We have about an hour or so to ask questions back and forth, introduce ourselves, kind of explain why we're going into surrogacy, why I want to be a surrogate and why they're looking for one. And then after we answer questions, we take 24 hours to decide whether or not we want to move forward with that person. I personally have never said no after meeting a person. I can't imagine why. I mean, it's really important to choose an intended parent that you want to work with for the next 1.5 to 2 years. Sometimes it takes, because you've got to do the medical clearance and the legal clearance and then the embryo transfer. Sometimes it doesn't work the first time, so you're going to continue with more embryo transfers. So there's really no expected amount of time for a surrogacy journey, but you want to make sure that you're picking a good couple that you're comfortable working with for the next 2 years, foreseeable future. So I have never met a couple that I haven't absolutely fallen in love with immediately. So this time around, instead of getting one intended parent to look at, so what they've done is they've given me a profile. I've said yes, I've done the meeting with them, and then I've just moved forward. This time they provided me with 3 separate people who were interested in me. The first one was an intended mother, so a single parent that is wanting to start her family. And the second one was another couple who already has a child, and then they're looking to grow their family and have a second. And then the third was a couple who is trying to have their first child. So all 3 of their stories were very different. They all had different personalities, they all lived in different areas, they all had different reasons for coming into surrogacy and choosing this journey as a way to grow their family. So there was a lot to think through because it was up to me. I had all 3 of these people who had already looked at my profile and said yes. And like I said, normally I would get one and decide yes or no. So in the past, I have said no to just a profile. I haven't said no to, yes, I like your profile, I've met you and I don't want you. It's always been, I look at your profile and for one reason or another, I've decided not to follow through with them. But this time around, I got 3 profiles before meeting any of them. And so I had to decide between these 3, who do I want to meet first, and then go from there. So my first couple that I worked with was an international couple from China. And while they couldn't be here for the delivery, they were able to send over a power of attorney and a nanny who were at the hospital within 12 hours of birth and able to claim and sign over the papers for the baby. So even though the couple was international, they were able to communicate with me as often as a regular parent in the United States would have. They were calling me, texting me, we were emailing back and forth. I was sending them pictures and videos and updates of the baby the entire time. And I was still able to have a connection with them and bond with them, even though they were an international couple. So for me, there is no barrier if they're not sitting next door to me the entire pregnancy. So I was ready and willing to take on another international couple, or in this case, an international mother. She is a single parent hoping to grow her family. So that was a difference for me. So it was between her and 2 other couples, and I saw her profile, and on her profile, the first photo of her was riding a horse. And then the second photo of her was her cat just smushed on her face. And as soon as I saw those first 2 pictures, I knew that I would want to work with somebody like this. I have 3 cats myself, and I grew up a very big horse girl. I never owned any, unfortunately, but I read all the encyclopedias, I played all the horse games. My best friend got horseback riding lessons and took me with her. I've always loved horses. So seeing another woman who as interested in my interests, as well into my interests as I am, loving cats and loving horses, I knew that she probably has a kind soul just like I do, and that having things in common would make it easier to bond during our journey. And so I went ahead and I chose her out of the 3, and I was told by Kelly that if I met with her and one of us said no, that if one of the other parents that I had looked at was still available, I could meet up with them next. So it wasn't like I said yes to her and then the other ones went away forever. They could potentially match with another surrogate. But I said yes to my intended mother, and within 2 days we were able to have our match meeting. It took about 45 minutes. We did it in the morning my time, and I think it was evening for her time over in China. We did have a translator with us, but my intended mother actually spoke English really well. I think there was only one moment where she needed to translate something that was a medical terminology, so I'm sure that's difficult to memorize in another language. I'm currently studying Japanese, and I can barely say my mother, your father, let alone medical terminology, so I can't imagine the difficulty that comes with that. But that was the only thing that she ended up having to translate. We were able to have a conversation between just the 2 of us. She asked me a whole slew of questions about me and my lifestyle. She asked me questions about like, what kind of food do I eat? What does my day look like, from how I wake up in the mornings, what I do in the afternoons, to how do I spend my evenings with my family. She asked me about my family that I have around me. I have my parents and my siblings within an hour, as well as my mother-in-law lives about 20 minutes away. So I have a very large support system, thankfully, which which is really beneficial when starting a surrogacy journey. And she asked me just other questions about my work, how it impacts my life. She asked me, how do I deal with stress? And I kind of, in that moment, felt stressed, but in my day-to-day life, I don't really. So my answer to her was I just go take a nap. I feel like it's a good way to handle stress. If something's overwhelming, just go sleep about it. It'll be better when it's over. I have a very relaxed job, so I don't feel a lot of stress. I can make my own schedule, work whenever I want. I've been doing the same job for 5 years now, so I'm very comfortable with the job. I make executive decisions really easily. I don't have to ask other people what I'm doing. So my job doesn't cause me a lot of stress. And I only have one child. He's super stress-free. He's very relaxed, very independent now that he's 8. And my husband is not a stressful person. He does not cause me any extra stress. He's more chill than I am if possible. So that question definitely threw me off. But if I feel stressed, maybe I'll just go take a nap about it. I think that was the only question that she had that I had difficulty answering. Everything else was pretty straightforward. She had on her iPad a whole list of questions that she was ready and willing to ask me. But after talking for about 15 minutes, she's like, I don't feel like I need to ask you the rest of these questions. You just seem so perfect, which is such a compliment coming from an intended mother that you're interested in. I didn't have a ton of questions for her. I asked her about whether or not she would want breast milk after. So for me, I never latched with my son. I couldn't get him to breastfeed. So I ended up pumping for a full year after he was born. I wanted to make it until he was a year old. And I got into a really good groove of it. I knew exactly what I was doing. I had the right flange sizes. I tried a few different pumps and found a really good routine. So I was able to breastfeed for the entire year. I think there was 2 times that he needed a bottle of formula, but that was it. The rest of his first year alive, it was all me. And I was even able, in the after 6 months, I was able to provide breast milk to another child in my city. I donated 700 ounces to that baby. So I know that I am capable. My question for her was, is she interested in having any breast milk? Since I was able to provide a full year's worth of breast milk to my son, as well as 700 ounces to another child. And then for my last surrogacy baby, since he lived in another country, they didn't want breast milk after he left, but while he was in the hospital, I was able to provide some colostrum, and then I pumped for 3 months after the birth of the baby and donated to a company called NICU. So I wanted to know what she was interested in, and she didn't know yet. I guess it doesn't really cross their minds to look past baby being born. They're so focused on the very beginning of their fertility journey. They've just gotten their embryos, they've just gotten everything figured out and gotten all their embryos tested, and now they're looking for somebody to grow the embryo. Sometimes questions like that of, how do you plan on feeding the baby once they're here, haven't really crossed their minds. They're still trying to get their foot through the door of, are we gonna have a baby? Are we gonna have a positive pregnancy test? So I thought that was super interesting. She's like, I don't know if I want breast milk. I'll definitely, she came back and she was like, I'll do some research. I'll try to figure out what I'm comfortable with. And formula has come a heck of a ways from when it was first invented and is just as beneficial as breast milk. So even if she doesn't want it, that's totally fine. I was just curious for my own sake on whether or not I was gonna be having another pumping journey. If not, I could reach out to NICU and maybe work with them again, or maybe this time I won't pump. I know there's a lot of surrogates who, once they have their babies, they immediately try to stop their breast milk from coming in. So that's always an option for me. I haven't done it. I know there's teas and there's supplements and there's binding and stuff to prevent breast milk from coming in. So that might be something that I'll have to do more research on myself. So my intended mother is going to do her own research on whether or not she wants breast milk provided. And then I will do my own research on what I'm gonna do if I don't provide breast milk. So we both have something to look forward to and do research on. I did ask if she wanted to be in the delivery room. That was something I had asked my previous parents as well. They had said yes, and I would have let them. Unfortunately, they weren't here for the birth, but this intended mother said yes, she would love to be in the delivery room. I work for my hospital that I deliver at, so I know that I'm allowed up to 2 people in my room, and since she is a single parent, I can have her and my husband comfortably with me from the beginning of labor to the end of it, so that's super exciting. There was actually one reason I was interested in working with just a single intended mother, as I know sometimes for the intended fathers, it's a little bit of an awkward conversation to have of, do you want to be there at the birth of your child to look at someone that's not your wife pushing out child? You know what I mean? So knowing that she is a single mother, it would be easier, more comfortable to have a baby in front of another woman. So I don't feel as shy with just her in the room and not another man that I don't know very well. So I'm looking forward to the delivery of a baby that I'm not pregnant with yet, and I think maybe that's just part of the surrogacy journey. I know what's coming next. I know I'm doing my legal clearance after medical. I know that I'm doing my shots next. I know that I'm taking my medications. I know what first trimester feels like, second trimester, third trimester. I know what delivery feels like. There's not a lot of shock when it comes to doing another surrogacy journey. There's a lot of maybe not of what ifs, but there could be potential bumps in the road. We could have an embryo fail. We could have medical clearance take several months again. We could have issues signing the legal clearance. There's so many things that are up in the air. So I think a big thing with doing a surrogacy journey is knowing that you roll with the punches. You take it one step at a time. So for me right now, I'm focusing on my matching journey. So I matched with her last week, at the end of last week, and I've never worked with her clinic before. So they're currently receiving all of my medical documents. They're gonna go over my medical history to make sure that they feel like I'm also a good choice for a surrogacy journey. They're looking over my medical documents to make sure that I'm a good fit to be a surrogate. And so they sent me an intake form online, and it was 4 pages, just the standard. Have you had surgeries in the past? Are you allergic to anything? Are you currently taking medications? What is your family history like? Is there stroke, cancer, heart attacks, etc.? So I filled out all a bunch of that, as well as some about my husband. We both had to sign some papers explaining that, like, yes, we're okay with their privacy. Yes, we're okay with the intended mother having my medical records. So once I filled all that out, I am now waiting for them to go over my medical records and then decide if they are ready to move forward with me. I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I did have a set of intended parents I was excited to work with, and their clinic did deny me. So that was kind of a shock. I shouldn't have been too surprised. They denied me because I had a DNC after my last surrogacy baby. My placenta had gotten stuck in my uterus, and so they had to manually remove it, and then there was some retained placenta that we had to do a DNC to remove, which did cause scar tissue, and then my fertility clinic did a hysteroscopy to remove that scar tissue, and then they approved me to be a surrogate again. So I've gone through the medical clearance process twice since then and been approved. So I know that I have a healthy body and that I'm ready to be a surrogate again. It all just depends on different fertility clinics having different standards for what they're okay with. So that specific fertility clinic was not okay with the DNC. So I am fingers crossed that my new intended mother, that their fertility clinic looks at my uterus and is happy with what they see. I know it normally takes about 2 weeks for them to go over all of my medical history, because they're getting a whole bunch from my hospital as well as from my doctor's offices, and then they're going to look over the questionnaire that I filled out as well. And as long as all of the paperwork looks good, I should be going out to San Francisco to meet my fertility clinic and do my own medical clearance there, which will just be the standard ultrasound, pap smear, blood work that they always do. So fingers crossed that I get to move forward with this intended mother from my current matchmaking process into my medical clearance. I'm really hopeful this time, now that it's been several months since my failed transfer and that I'm several months into not being on any special medication for my uterus, that my uterine lining will be thick enough the first time, so I will pass medical clearance in San Francisco. So fingers crossed that I am able to get through this without any more hiccups. Giving trees.